So guys, today we're going to look at where to aim ourselves and how to kind of figure that one out, especially if we've just no idea, if we're totally just in the dark, I don't know where I'm going, that sort of feeling. Okay, so before I do that, I'm going to quickly mention a video I did previously about what a good and meaningful life is, and that was autonomy, relatedness, and competence. So that's relevant, but I've already mentioned it, so just check that video out if you're interested in that one. For today, I'm going to go through the big five and how that relates to different jobs and different kind of characteristics. But first, I'm going to go through sacredness, what you hold sacred. And for the religious people, I apologize, but give it space, because you do get inspired, you do admire people, you feel awe towards things that are bigger than you, and that's the important part. It's sacredness is really something that you are willing to give your life to, and metaphysically, but also you're willing to endure physical pain to actually achieve this thing, like whatever it is. And it tends to be categorized into family, friends, hobbies, and career tends to be one of those four. But you will truly sacrifice materials and time and whatever else into that thing that you hold sacred. So I want to go through just the definition of sacredness as well, which is, I came across this definition. It's actually why I'm including it here, because I think this definition is feckin' perfect. And that is, sacredness is not something that's perfect or ideal. It is good getting better. But what sacredness actually is in practice is something that transforms you. So something you encounter, whether you encounter it, you read it, you watch it, whatever it is, you encounter it and it transforms you in some way. And then you go back into the world and the world transforms you as it does. You have the confines, you have the parameters, you have the pressures of life, of living, and it changes you and you grow, obviously. Then you come back to whatever is sacred, and if it is sacred, you will see it with new eyes. You will see details there that you didn't see before. It will grow with you almost. It seems like an endless well of knowledge or inspiration, or it's something deeper that you're still kind of fumbling towards, still trying to grasp. And every time you come back to it, you just get a little bit better of a grasp on it. That's what sacredness is. So I want you to hold that definition in your head as we're going through this stuff or whatever, because it's not about just what calls to you, because essentially the message of this video is going to be follow your passion, follow your interest. If it interests you, it is speaking to something deeper. But really what I'm asking is, every time you interact with it, that you're stumbling forward. It's not just like, ooh, I like it, which would be like any of your addictive personality or your addictive things such as drink, drugs, all the rest, whatever. It's not renewed. You're not getting anything more out of it. You're just getting the same experience, which isn't what sacredness is. Sacredness is this growing thing that speaks to you at a deeper level. That captures your attention. Because again, the addiction stuff does capture your attention. Your phone captures your attention. There's loads of things that capture your attention that don't make you grow. So keep that in mind. Please and thanks. So your big five are agreeableness, openness, neuroticism, conscientiousness, and extroversion. And we'll go through those. We're going to start with extroversion because it's the one we all know. And to be extroverted, here's a caveat though. It means where you recharge your battery. So I can be very socially adept, very good in a social situation, but it just drains me. And I need to go for a walk, I need to read a book, whatever it is to recharge. That would make me an introvert. And of course, all of these things are a spectrum. You land somewhere in the middle there. It's not one or the other, so be careful of falling into that trap. But if you operate within if you're extroverted, if you operate in extroversion, it's a bit more of an endless supply of energy because you're being energized while you're doing it. So on a career path or on just aiming yourself in life, collaboration and group projects is probably where you want to go. Something that involves working in a group or managing a group, really having that frequent, and it's about frequency here really, but also quality as well. But those interactions with people, perhaps multiple people, like whatever your kind of number, whatever you're happy with, try and figure that one out. If you're introverted, then collaboration is still good, but it's going to be more intermittent. It's going to be less frequent. So you're going to go off, work really hard for like a week, whatever, and then come back and collaborate. So this would be like an editor on a book or something like that. So the writer does all the work, then the editor does work, then the writer does, and you have that back and forth. So, and you can have that dynamic in plenty of places, but knowing the dynamic that suits you will let you kind of push forward in your career and kind of dictate or navigate and just be like, hey, look, group projects don't work for me. Is it okay if I take on extra work and just do it myself and I'll bring it back to you in a week because the deadline's a month away? Like, is that okay? Or can I do this at home for the day and come in tomorrow, just give you the work, give me some feedback, and I'll go off and do it again? Potentially. So again, it's a spectrum. You're not going to be that introverted. A bit of social interaction is good. And it's good to bounce ideas. But at the extreme, that could be what it looks like. So in these two, what you find sacred, bring it back to that. In extroversion might be that swell, like if you've ever been at a concert or a festival, it might be that energy that you're part of, but it's not you. You're a rising tide or something like that. That might be what you hold sacred, that collaborative spirit. Then if you're introverted, it might be that time to reflect, that time to hone, that time to perfect on your own or something like that. That might be what you find sacred in that. Again, that's not the only two options, but I'll leave it to you to kind of feel those out. Okay, number 2 then is agreeableness. And agreeableness is basically just smoothing the water, keeping everyone calm, keeping everyone happy. Really good for middle management. If you're like a floor manager or something like that, this is a really good trait to have. Because essentially what you're trying to do is keep a tight ship, keep the ship clean or whatever. Have everyone just running on smoothly, leave your personal stuff outside perhaps in a job setting. Or maybe you think it needs to be talked about and trying to bring them back down, calm them back down. Whatever it is, it's all about keeping that rough sea smooth. So again, in a job setting, this is really good for like middle management. This is good for those people something to delegate or something like that, trying to make everyone kind of happy. Then if you're disagreeable, it doesn't mean you go looking for fights, but it just means you're on whatever path you're on, and if a fight comes your way, it's not a big deal. So for those people, jobs that are good for them is lawyers and like your high-end managers where you're just fighting over what Apple does next, and you all have like, it's that kind of sharp elbows trying to squiggle your way forward sort of thing. But like with any fight, you hug afterwards, as in like it's you go to war and then afterwards you go get drinks, like all the rest. This is what we all hate politicians for. Is because they all go for drinks afterwards together. So what you might find sacred then, again to bring it back to that, is calming those wild spirits, or keeping everyone that kind of collaborative, just we're all working together, working towards something, and it's smooth. Maybe that's what's kind of sacred to you, that like everything's going good. And then on the other side would be that kind of going to war, sharpening your sword against other swords, and learning. Not that you can't learn on the other, but you know what I mean, as in like winning the war, like whatever it is. That might be what you find sacred. But by the way, if you are disagreeable and you're looking for victory in arguments, there's a difference between looking for victory and looking for knowledge. Be careful of that one. Number 3 then is openness, which we'll all kind of know or whatever. But it basically means that there's the barriers between categories is less. It's a weird way of looking at it, but you'll understand. So obviously if you're high in openness, you're going to be quite creative. So those boundaries don't necessarily get in the way. You're linking ideas from two very different sections, and You're just seeing if they go together, and most of the time they don't, but every now and then they do. And then if you're low in openness, it means that the boundaries between categories is stronger, which means that you'd be quite adept at categorizing, which again is its own pro. So I caution you all, because I know a lot of you are creative types and all the rest, don't be demonizing the other side. Low openness people or whatever, there's a pro to that side. So in careers or whatever, high openness, you want something that's creative, that you have the freedom to cross boundaries and all of that. If you're low in openness, then something that kind of systematizes or categorizes things might be the way to do it, such as auditors or accountants or stuff like that. Might be the way to go around it. And ironically, for every business or whatever, they always say that there's a creative, like high openness, low openness person or whatever, because one is the creative spirit that goes flying off into space or whatever, and will build the business, but cannot maintain it because it's just too messy. And then you have the low openness person who categorizes, systematizes, whatever, that doesn't necessarily start the business, but can maintain it because it has those categories. So there's your pros and cons. Number 4 then is conscientiousness. And conscientiousness is correlated to openness, but correlation does not mean causation. But just keep in mind, so conscientiousness basically means that kind of inner voice in your head, your voice in your own head. Does that dictate your actions? If you say that you want to quit smoking, or you're not drinking for a month, or like how good are you at following your New Year's resolutions? That's a good one. Basically. So if you're high in conscientiousness, it means you're high in kind of discipline, you're high in following through. Like if you say you're going to do something, actually doing it. So there's certain jobs that cater to that. Like again, certain management positions if you say that you're going to do it, that you do actually do it, and you live off lists and all the rest. And what you might find sacred in that is a person's word, as in valuing the word of the other person. They said they're going to do it, they will do it, and respecting the people that do that, and then emulating it yourself. If you're low in conscientiousness, then it means that you're not very good at discipline, basically. But it might mean that you hold sacred following your intuition, following your gut. So maybe there's a certain amount of adaptability there. But again, both of these in the extreme is iffy. Number 5 then is neuroticism. And neuroticism is the one that no one wants to be high on. But again, like the last one, whatever, at the extremes, they're negative. But there is a purpose to it. So neuroticism is your ability to regulate your emotions. So whether you have high fluctuations in your emotions or whether it's quite steady. So if you're high in neuroticism, it means high fluctuations. So what you might hold sacred is if you are able to not have that fluctuation orientated around yourself, but if you are susceptible to the room, if you are open to the room, and you feel those fluctuations from other people, that might make you more empathetic. And actually it does. So what you hold sacred might be empathizing with someone else and connecting with their difficulties at the moment. And so your counselors and all the rest, it might fit you into that. Then if you're low in conscientiousness, perhaps places where emotion just doesn't play as big a part, such as accounting or business and all the rest, might be what you hold sacred. What you hold sacred would be kind of the grit and the ability to persevere and to, no matter the struggle, no matter what happens outside, you are in control of your emotions. That can be pathologized. Obviously, that could be very detrimental if picked up through trauma or through like life experience, whatever. That can be. But if that is your natural kind of instinct to hold that sacred, that can be okay. So again, with all of these, I'm not going to tell you what to hold sacred. If it speaks true to you, it is not for me to say that that is invalid. You will correct these things. I ask you to look at the other side and just recognize the pros on the other side. But after that, it is for you to correct and you to recognize exactly what is sacred, because I'm not going to get in the way of what's sacred to you. That's not my place. So if it speaks to you at that deep level where you are willing to sacrifice for it, where you are willing to transform for it, where you are willing to metaphorically or metaphysically die, that kind of old version of you, you get rid of that lazy version of you or that quiet version of you or whatever else in service of finding your thing. Like, I'm not going to get in the way of that. I couldn't. So guys, while I know this is a long enough video, this is quite condensed. This is a very dense topic, and trying to unpack it in a video that's like under 20 minutes, hopefully, is difficult. I can't give it as much nuance as is needed, and I can't go into the possible career paths for each trait and all the rest. So I hope you can kind of forgive that one, but I hope you can explore it. So there's going to be a link in the description for a questionnaire for finding out your big 5 traits. And I want you to approach that with humility, with non-judgment and curiosity. Everyone's going to want to be high in conscientiousness. Everyone's going to want to be high in openness, high in extroversion, low in neuroticism. Agreeable and disagreeable, it kind of depends where you fall. But there are certain traits that are rewarded, encouraged, all the rest. Put that all aside and just listen to yourself. Feel it, what one feels. Like, as in, do the test. Recognize what it's measuring. And just be like, yeah, sometimes I recharge on my own. Sometimes my room's a bit messy. I really do like creative stuff, but maybe you're not that creative. Like, there's going to be things, you need to be humble on this, and they're all spectrums. You're going to land closer to the middle than you want to anyway. But so non-judgment and curiosity, to bring those two, please, when you're doing this, and then try to integrate it and come back to this video, listen through the traits again, try to find what is sacred, what really speaks to you at that unconscious, like involuntary sort of level. It just captures your attention, and every time it captures your attention, it grows slightly, it changes, you learn more, it keeps your attention because it's growing. That's what I want you to find, because I want you to be able to transform. I want you to voluntarily transform, metaphysically die for something that you hold dear, for something that is bigger than you, because that is what it is to have drive, to have aim. Because if you want to be better than you are, you have to have something bigger than you are currently. So guys, I'm going to leave it there. I hope you have a good week. Hope you got something from this. And I will see you next Tuesday. Bye guys.